So here's something, good news though. Mario Brothers just set a global opening weekend record for animated films.
Nice.
$377 million on a $100 million budget. And let's, I think, we have a clip actually from the film. We're the one first. So here's the thing. This is a good example of, there's a disconnect between the critics and between the average viewer, right? So the Mario Brothers movie, though, by the way, this is a good example. It's not even necessarily anti-woke. It just shuns the idea of trying to be woke. So obviously the voice actor, Chris Pratt, who's a known Christian, I believe he's more conservative, he said, this is the soundtrack to your youth. You don't want someone to come along and cynically destroy it. I fully understand that. You do not want that to happen. And by the way, critics did not like the movie. You can look at the contrast. Critics had 56%, whereas the audience had 96%. Let's read a quote here from a critic. Said, "It's a fan service above all else, regressively so." This is Eric Marchi. "Structuring a threadbare story around iconography linked to source material just isn't enough. It's a video game. And by the way, it's not even a video game with a real story when you go back to it, okay?
It wasn't a series of books about Mario and Luigi, I don't think.
I mean, can you have 2 hours of, sorry, Mario, the princess is in another castle. Oh, shit, what are you going to do? Like, it's just self-inflicted wound from John Leguizamo. He was complaining about the casting not being diverse enough and went through a whole woke tirade. We have a clip of John Leguizamo.
Are you going to be watching Super Mario Brothers?
No, I will not be watching Super
Oh my goodness.
So they could have included a Latin character, like I was groundbreaking, then they stopped the groundbreaking.
I know.
Yeah, I was groundbreaking.
They messed up the inclusion. They
messed up the inclusion. I'm going to include a lot of Latinos in the Pest too. Other fact, Bowser, I don't know if this is a dragon in a turtle shell, and this movie is based off of an 8-bit video game. And another key fact, which interested me and shows you how out of touch John Leguizamo is with the average Latin American, CNN pointed out some startling statistics regarding viewership of this film.
Also a racial element here. Look at this. What share is Hispanic? 41% of Mario filmgoers were Hispanic versus just 8% of the U.S. media. So the fact is the U.S. media is not representative of the people who are actually going out to see these films, and that's why I think we're seeing this very large split.
By the way, 39% of them were just using the film as a babysitter. But look, progress is fair.
Exactly.
I had that when I went to a movie, and
the first time I saw that Steven Crowder clip, I didn't notice the first time he said it's not necessarily anti-woke, but again, he did say it's not necessarily, so he still kind of thinks it's anti-woke. The title of that Steven Crowder video actually starts with the words anti-woke Mario movie, so they do kind of think it's anti-woke. I do appreciate Steven saying that it's not necessarily anti-woke. I don't think it's anti-woke at all. And I don't agree with John either. They're both wrong in this regard. Sid the Sloth is wrong, Steven Crowder is wrong, but also Steven saying things that we've already talked about in my review, but we're going to go into a little deeper here. I already reviewed the film, so if you want to check out my review, go check that out. About a 20-minute review. It is spoiler heavy. I go through the plot in the beginning of the video, and then just break down my opinion on everything else in the film. I guess first, before anything else, it would be good to define anti-woke. I think it's a pretty simple definition. If something is going to be anti-woke, it has to have messages inside that are very obviously and directly attacking woke agendas, woke messages, and fighting back, typically with traditional messages and values. That kind of leads into the whole definition of woke in general, which is you're awake. That's why they came up with that term, was because of LGBTQ, racial issues, etc., just different topics where people claimed, oh, I'm awake now. I can see clearly now. I was wrong to believe traditional values in, all these different areas and political topics. So if a movie is pushing strongly traditional values and actually mentioning the woke values as being wrong, I would call that film anti-woke. And like I said in my review of the movie, it does not have enough woke content in it to be woke. The Mario movie does have woke content. It is minor, it is minuscule, there is hardly any woke content in this film, but there is still just a tiny bit. It's Peach being the girl boss. That is the woke content they had. It didn't ruin the experience for me. I don't think it will ruin the experience for children, obviously, but it was there. But it doesn't oversaturate the film. I would never call this movie a woke film. Some people are doing that. That is just wrong. Steven Crowder and other conservatives are calling this an anti-woke movie. It is not that either. It is neutral. It is a neutral bad movie. It's 10% woke, 80% bad movie, 10% good commercial. Probably less percent woke than I just said. Not that much, but it's there. We talked about Peach being nearly perfect, or maybe I didn't touch on that too much, but there was a part in the movie where Mario had to go through the obstacle course multiple times. Peach admitted that she did it perfectly, or at least completed it on her very first try, which there's no explanation given for that other than, well, she's a girl. If you want to say, well, she was raised there, and that's how she knew to navigate platform-like worlds like that, Mario apparently had some experience with that too in the beginning of the film. So that's kind of a plot hole. And the directors are kind of hypocrites here. If they're going to claim that Peach, being the girl boss she was and not having her be captured by Bowser, was not a woke move, if they say that, then it's kind of confusing that they would put Luigi in that position for the entire film. In an interview with the directors, they said they didn't want to put Peach in that situation. They said they didn't want to put her in her traditional role, but they thought it would be better to take her out of that and give her a more active role. I think that can be taken in only two ways. Either they're saying, we don't want a woman in that position, so we want to have an empowering woman in the film, so we're taking her out of that because that's insulting to women, and this is more of a political move. Or what they're saying is, no, we honestly just don't want a character in that situation. That just sucks for a character, and we like this character, and so we want them out. Which would imply that they don't like Luigi very much, or they don't see a problem with putting him in there for unknown reasons. I'm going with the political agenda of they didn't want to offend the feminists, and they wanted Peach to be free, and they didn't want to have those complaints against the film. My main reason for believing that is because they so easily put Luigi into that position very quickly and kept him there for the entirety of the film, which was, as I mentioned, one of the best voice actors in the film. Charlie Day was a great Luigi. Jack Black was a great Bowser. Those are the two best voices. We don't get enough of them. One of the things Steven's wrong about is something I've seen multiple people do online, and that's bring up the fact that the Mario games have a bad story. It's true. The Mario games do have a very, very simple, bad plot. It's a fun video game. I loved playing Mario as a kid. I never played it for the story, though. Nobody did. Kids didn't. Adults don't. It's just fun. You never question why Mario and Bowser are suddenly friends go-karting with each other. You just play the game. This is the thing people are doing, which is weird. It's somehow claiming that if you take a bad story from a video game and make it into a movie and not change the story very much, then somehow that story is automatically good. Now, I know Steven didn't directly say that, but then why is he attacking the critics? That's the confusing part here. You all saying that the Mario games have a bad story doesn't really make sense when you're attacking the critics. The critics aren't weirdos. The critics aren't doing anything bizarre. They're doing their job. They're reviewing a film. The most important elements of a film are going to be the story and the acting, or the voice acting when it comes to an animated film. They're doing their job. They have to review the story. They have to review the acting. They're not going to review whether or not it just looks like your video game. That one critique that Steven brought up from Rotten Tomatoes, that was a very good critique. Paraphrasing it, but he said something along the lines of, you can't just have iconic things present, viewable, and assume that makes it a good movie. It's lacking in the story, and it's lacking in the acting. That's true. It's a bad movie. It's a great distraction for kids. I like that Steven admitted that he made a joke that out of that 50-something% of Hispanics who went to see it probably just used it as a babysitter. I agree with that. It's a kids movie, like I said, but it's a really, really young kids movie. Like, the story is so bad and so dumbed down that it's not even, in my opinion, entertaining for older children, but rather for toddlers. Disney's Wreck-It Ralph was a good movie with a great story and took video game characters, but instead of making them real-world characters, made them just video game characters, but gave them a Toy Story effect. You can take simplistic stories and make them into very, very good movies with great stories for all ages. So Steven, along with Elon Musk, are kind of confused about what a critic's job is. It's to criticize the story and the acting, among everything else, the music, the animation, the cinematography. You know, it's their job to review all those things. Their job doesn't stop just because some people enjoy it and it entertained small children. And John over here doesn't care at all, I guess, that Toad was voiced by a black guy. I guess he just wanted more Hispanics in the film. Apparently, only adding Hispanics is considered to be a good deed in filmmaking these days. I've actually never seen the point in casting people that look like the characters they voice. If they can do a voice that matches the look of the character, your job is done. You were hired for your voice. You weren't hired for your skin. You weren't hired for your height, your weight. You were hired because of your voice for an animated film. Your voice needs to match the look of the character, something the Mario movie didn't really do very well with most of its cast. So what John is asking for is just simply a political agenda, a political move, something that the kids aren't going to care about, something that audiences in general should not care about. A lot of people think it's because the critics hate Chris Pratt for being someone who's not fully conservative but leans in that area and is also a professing Christian. I just see that as one of the most ridiculous claims right now against the critics, saying that they're just targeting Chris Pratt because where were these critics during Guardians of the Galaxy? He's done films where they've given him great reviews, up to 90-something%. Why would they all of a sudden choose to give him a 50% out of nowhere because they supposedly hate him for being a professing Christian or a conservative in some areas in his life? That just doesn't make any sense, especially with a movie that, let's be honest, the audience does not completely enjoy. A lot of people are debating over it. A lot of people are making reviews like mine saying that it's very fun for very young children, but it's bad for everyone else. Ultimately, it's a bad movie with its story and characters. But I do believe it was Steven Crowder and other critics like Critical Drinker who were saying things like, this could change filmmaking forever, or change things in a drastic way for a good period of time, which I just want to say, that's a bad thing. We don't want more movies like this. We don't want more directors and more writers being tempted by, oh, the Mario movie is close to $1 billion. We can do that too if we just take something that's popular, not care too much about the source material, not care about character development, not care about the story, the plot, just simply attract all the children that drag their parents and their wallets to the theater so that we can get to that billion as well. I don't want that, and I would hope you guys don't want that either. That's not something I'm looking forward to. Yeah, I don't want woke content. I'll take neutral content over that. At the same time, the way Critical Drinker was talking about it and the way Steven mentioned it, I believe, before, and I've seen other critics do the same, they're not really saying this is a bad thing. They were talking about it almost as if it was a good thing. Some of them have just straight up said it's a great thing. It's not a great thing. The movie was fun, had some fun moments. I'll tell you the 3 moments that were fun for me, someone who wasn't a kid. Bowser singing Peaches, Mario training to the song I Need a Hero, and the gorilla in a white suit driving them in his cart to the song Take On Me. Those were the 3 best moments in the film, in my opinion. Parts that'll entertain adults. They're not plot heavy though. They have nothing to do with the plot. They have nothing to do with the characters or their relationships and development. They're simply just pure entertainment parts, which are fun songs and comedic moments. Everything else is just bad in between, trying to connect the dots. That is not what I want to see in the future of animated films, based on video games, based on children's stories. Pixar and DreamWorks, I said it before, I'll say it again, Pixar and DreamWorks have been setting the standards. Even with stories from simple video games like Mario, like I mentioned with Wreck-It Ralph. There were a bunch of video games in there that had simple plots, but they worked because they said, let's give it a Toy Story effect. They didn't say, let's take Wreck-It Ralph and actually make it a story where they're in the real world. Of course, that's going to be a challenge, but Disney wouldn't do that. At least they wouldn't do that at that time. Like I said before, Disney has been turning into woke garbage recently, and they have not been setting the standard for the past couple, 3-4 years, and DreamWorks has certainly been taking advantage of that. So just to summarize, no, for those people online claiming it's anti-woke, it's not. It doesn't have any heavy messages directly mentioning or contradicting and attacking woke messages and agendas. It doesn't have enough woke content on its own to be called a woke film. It is just a neutral bad film. And again, criticizing the critics for calling it bad by doing their job simply because the bad story was transferred from a video game to a film is not a good argument. If you enjoyed it, if you had fun watching it, good for you. No one's unhappy about that. Bringing up the fact that it made a lot of money and it's possibly going to make $1 billion, that doesn't mean anything. You know why it made a ton of money. Because kids, very small children, wanted to go see it over and over again. Because they liked what they saw visually. They saw Mario do Mario things. That's fine. You made a great babysitter movie. Like Steven said, I agree with that. This movie is a babysitter, and parents like that. And so that's why it's reaching $1 billion. Bringing up that number, I'm not unhappy that it's gonna reach $1 billion. I'm not mad about that. I'm fine with that. I would rather a movie like this reach $1 billion than a crappy woke film reach $1 billion. I'm fine with this reaching $1 billion. That doesn't make me upset. That doesn't make critics upset. People online keep bringing up the money it made and the fact that the story was already bad in the first place. None of those mean anything to the critics who are just trying to do their job. Also, you guys keep bringing up the Rotten Tomato score and you keep bringing up the audience score. I just want to point out, I guarantee that audience score is not a bunch of toddlers going onto Rotten Tomatoes on their smartphones or tablets or home computers and reviewing it. I guarantee that's a bunch of adults like you who are upset and falling into this hive mind mentality and are the same people that are using the arguments that Steven gave. It's a bad video game story, so therefore now it's a good movie story. Or the voices were great because I love these actors and they're lovable people to me in real life. Or it made a lot of money. And whenever movies make a lot of money, people start sharing these types of memes, and so I'll look stupid and lame if I don't share them on Twitter as well, so I have to jump in. It's those kinds of people that are giving the Mario movie that score. That 100% audience score came from people with those lame arguments who I guarantee had a good time, but I guarantee you only had a good time at the few fun moments that I listed. I don't think you had a good time in between. Certainly hope you didn't have a good time seeing Luigi locked up for the entire film. Steven is wrong, Sid the Sloth is wrong, it's not woke, and it's not anti-woke. It's a fun at times, bad movie. That's great for very young children. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in my next video.